All right, folks, we are out here on the 50-yard range. I want to test these loads here at 50 yards, and then once we actually settle in on which is best, we'll take it out to the gun club and shoot at 100 yards out there. But 50 yards is going to do for us for now. We'll just have to remember to multiply all the group sizes by about 2 to come up with a number in MOA. I suppose I should talk a little bit about the gun here. This is a Ruger M77 Mark II in stainless. This does not have a free-floated barrel, which is not a problem. I'll just have to pay attention to having consistent pressure on the rest and not loading into it and all that. The scope on top is a Nikon Monarch 4-16, it looks like. And it looks like by a 40 or 44 millimeter objective there. It is fed from a blind magazine. So we will get started shooting here. I have taken a couple sighters just to make sure I wasn't going to hit my target camera, make sure the chronograph was working with the overcast light we have today. Conditions, it is about 50 degrees, absolutely dead calm, no wind whatsoever. So let's take a few groups and see how it shoots here. We're going to start today with that short seating depth on the lower right-hand target there. On the sighter group, I did have just a tiny bit of feeding trouble, and we'll see if that continues with these shorter ones. Okay, that one fed just fine, so we'll just keep an eye on that through the test. So this is the first charge with IMR 4064 at the short overall length. The trigger on this is just a little bit heavy, but I did not have trouble at all holding consistently during the sighter shots. The sighter shots you can see on the target there, you've got 2 bullets through the same hole, and then I made an adjustment to get it closer to the center of the target, and I made another adjustment to make it so that I could hold center of the black box and have the impacts not hit there to not mess up my point of aim. For a 3-shot group like this, it probably doesn't matter as much, but I want to keep everything as consistent to my normal process as I can. Could use a 4-end stop here, and in fact, you know what? I'm going to. I'm not going to put any pressure up against it, but let's use the 4-end stop today, since position on the rest could be critical. And we've got plenty of room between the barrel, so it's not going to hit the barrel itself. I'm just going to run it right up against that 4-end stop, but without putting pressure against it. I'm using the lightest possible pressure on my shoulder to counteract the trigger, trying to let the gun kind of free recoil as much as possible. It is a pretty light recoiling rifle, so I can do that fairly consistently, I think. All right, I'm going to shut up and we'll get to shooting. Brass looks good. I did notice this on the sighter shots too, but the primer crater is off of center. Might just be how the bolt is configured. And looks like I did an all right job of dialing in the scope. Not great accuracy so far. I'm going to give this gun a few minutes to cool down in between each 3-shot group, just because it is a fairly light profile barrel. Let me go take a look at those chronograph numbers. So we got an average velocity there of 28.85 with a standard deviation of 16. Not terrible. We definitely want to get up quite a bit faster than that. Want to be around the 3,000 feet per second mark for this load, even up a little bit higher if we can. So yeah, we'll see where it goes from here. All right, starting on that top row, didn't have any feeding trouble on that one. We are on our longer overall length now. Getting just a light sprinkle now, nothing I'm worried about. So this is the same charge weight as that last group, just at a much longer overall length, shooting about 40 thousandths off the lands. Looks like our velocity is a little higher. We're around 2911. Brass looks the same. I should have mentioned there was a tiny bit of primer cratering on that last group, and there is on this as well, but some guns just seem to do that. Nothing good in the accuracy department. I'm gonna go ahead and give the gun a good 5-10 minutes to cool down now. We'll make sure we're not letting that thin barrel play into the accuracy. All right, next group here. Well, that is much better on accuracy. That's getting me excited now. Yeah, it's probably just over a 1/2 inch center to center. About an MOA. Good deal, good deal. All right, last group with 4064. Not quite up to where I want to be with velocity. Yeah, there I had that slight little feeding hiccup. And brass still looks great. Same amount of primer cratering. Nothing I'm worried about. Yeah, is that little hiccup. Not too bad there. Not what we're looking for, and it looks like we're around 2916 on the velocity. So not quite fast enough. I'll go switch targets and we'll move on to reloader 15. I read that velocity wrong on the chronograph. That was actually 2976. Average velocity ended up being 2971 with a standard deviation of only 8 feet per second. So that's kind of up there as far as looking like a good load so far. Brass is looking great. We probably got a little room to go up on that powder charge, and we might, if it comes down to that, if none of the others work better right out the gate. Shooting some reloader 15. Top row there. Brass looks the same as the last. Maybe I just need to run the bolt quicker. I'll try that. All right, looking much better on the group so far. Velocity is about the same as the starting load on the last one, right around 2,900 feet per second. That group's looking better already. There we go, 2,950. I don't know what happened to that second shot. It didn't feel quite as good. I don't think I pulled it that far, but those next two shots were right on top of each other. And last group with reloader 15. No changes on the brass. Not half bad. And looks like about 2980 is where we're sitting. Give the gun a solid 10 minutes, maybe even 15. Tell you what, it's 1:17 now at 1:30. we will start with the H4350 groups. Starting in with the H4350 loads, and the weather can't decide what it's doing. It was sprinkling 20 seconds ago, and now the sun's shining in my eyes, and we got overcast over here, so we might get rain on and off. Through this last set of groups, who knows? It has been that full 15 minutes, and just a little bit more. Let's shoot this last set of groups. The sighters that I shot were with H4350, and we ended up right about 3,000 feet per second with that first group. So I'm expecting to get a little bit higher than that as we move up, but who knows? Could surprise us. Yeah, it seems like with this gun, running the bolt smooth and quick and all in one stroke seems to be the ticket. Point of impact is a little higher. Looks like it's up in the black there. That is okay. And yeah, we're at and brass looks the same. Primer's slightly flattish. Not terrible. About the same as the other ones. And we were at 3072 for that shot. So we're up in the velocity area we want to be. Let's see what the accuracy does. Okay, so terrible group there. But we're okay to move on to the next load. Brass is exactly the same. All right, a little bit of weirdness going on. With the groups, they're not looking good at all. I'm gonna let the barrel cool down again and we'll shoot the last group. Put 2 in the same hole on that last group. Let's do 3 in the same hole on this group. That would be great. Brass is still the same. Yeah, not great. All right, let's get back down to the bench and we'll take a little bit closer look at this. All right, folks, we are down here at the bench, and I've spent just a little bit of time analyzing the data from today's test. Let's take a quick look at the targets here, although I'm going to say right from the get-go, the targets are really not what we're going to be focused most on. You can tell here with the 4064 is trying to group, actually doing halfway decent. Now remember, all of these groups are at 50 yards, so double all of these numbers, if you can even see them there, because they're written in pencil, unfortunately. Double those numbers if you want 100-yard group equivalents. Nothing outstanding here, really at all. That was our first group. with the shorter seating depth, and it kind of sprayed them, but the same charge with the longer seating depth did too. So anyway, starting to try to group here. Reloader 15 looked really promising, stacking these 3 shots together and these 3 shots together. And H4350 kind of spread them out. There are 2 bullets in that hole actually, and then that wasn't too bad, around an inch, so around 2 MOA there. But the targets aren't really what we're looking at. Let's take a look at the velocity data, and I'm just gonna hold this here so that I can read it, but I'll put this stuff up on the screen for you guys. With the 4064, our top charge ended up at an average velocity of 2971 with a standard deviation of 8. Pretty decent numbers there. Not quite as fast as we were looking to go. Now, this is a 22-inch barrel and not, I believe, a 24-inch barrel is what the test data was with. Actually, hang on, let me check that. Yes, test barrel was 24 inches, 1 in 10 twist. So this barrel is 2 inches shorter than that, so we'll expect a little bit lower velocity. The Hornady manual did quote 3,100 feet per second. We hit 2971, so we're looking about 130 feet per second slower than that. Reloader 15, kind of the same story. We ended up at 2956 for an average. Kind of a crazy numbers on that. We ended up with extreme spreads in the 30s and 50s for all of those groups, so nothing great there. H4350 started to look better, and the velocities were actually up quite a bit, reaching 3125 for a max velocity there, a max average on the last group at 43.3 grains. The extreme spread on that group was 51 feet per second though, and we had that 1 shot, 2 reading duplicates, and then 1 shot that was 51 feet per second outside of them. Now, I know that a 3-shot group isn't great for testing numbers there, but we can see that 1 was way outside all the others, and that kind of throws that out. The previous group, however, we had an average of 3083 for the velocity with a standard deviation of 8. Again, pretty decent numbers there and really good velocities. Now, remember, this is going to be a hunting load and a kind of medium-ish range hunting load for pronghorn out to probably 300 to 400 yards. Because of that, velocity is kind of king here as long as we can get halfway decent accuracy. Now, none of this is what I would call great accuracy. After I shot this test, I talked to the guy that owns the gun. He said he's been getting about 1 3/4 inches at 100 yards, which is kind of what we're seeing here, right? Even with kind of decent middle of the road groups, we're looking at 1.5 MOA. At first, when I was looking at this and kind of the results, I thought maybe it's the stock because as I said out on the range, this barrel is not free floated whatsoever. It makes contact with the stock all the way along the barrel channel. So I thought maybe that is the issue. I had a hunch and did a little bit of research online and on the forums, and I found that action screw torque for the M77 is supposed to be quite high, actually. Ruger says 95 foot-pounds for the front action screw. In fact, let me grab the gun here and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so here is the action. And to take a look at the action screws, I'll pop this floor plate out here. There we go. And you can see we've got 1 screw right here that's referred to as the angled screw, middle screw, and then 1 in the back of the trigger guard. According to Ruger, this front angled screw here is supposed to be torqued to 95 inch-pounds, which is kind of a lot. I think that comes out to just under 8 foot-pounds, which is quite a lot for firearms, at least in the limited experience that I've had. My Fat wrench does not go up that high in torque. I think the highest I can get is 60 inch-pounds or just a little bit higher. So what I did was torqued this front action screw to 60 inch-pounds, the back one to 45, and this middle one just kind of snug, not probably around the 15 to 20 inch-pound range. That is kind of the standard recommendation I was finding online on the forums. They were quite a bit looser than that. I think this front one still spun when I tightened it at 30 inch-pounds. So they were not loose. They certainly weren't falling out of the stock, but they were definitely not torqued. So that's what they're at right now. 60 inch-pounds in the front, 45 in the rear here, and the middle one is just kind of snug. Side note here, this is kind of a really pretty rifle. I really love the stainless. I don't have any rifles myself in stainless, but I may have to eventually. This is a Mauser type action. When I first saw this gun, I thought the bolt looked really familiar. It looks a whole lot like my Mosin action, which is also a Mauser type. I don't have any experience with actual Mausers, but anyway, just thought that was kind of cool. So anyway, after I got these action screws torqued, I decided to shoot a very short test. Now this is a couple of days after I shot this initial test, and it's very cold and rainy today, and I really didn't want to put my camera equipment out in that. So unfortunately, I didn't get this on video. I had already kind of decided H4350 was where we were going just because of the velocity. So I loaded up that top charge of 43.3 grains and shot a 5-shot group. And this is what I got. 4 stacked into under a half an inch there, and then I had 1 flyer. Now this is before I realized that that charge had a crazy high extreme spread, before I really looked into these numbers much. And otherwise I probably would have loaded the charge below that. But this is extremely promising and makes me think that we need to do a little bit more testing now with the action screws actually tight. Yes, I should have checked the action screws and the scope ring torque and all that from the get-go. The scope rings were properly torqued before, so that was not an issue. But those action screws being kind of loose as far as what they should have been, I think definitely contributed to the stringing we've got here. Now, could the stock still be playing into that? Yes, of course. This gun could definitely benefit, I think, from an aftermarket stock with a free-floated barrel. But it seems to be doing all right with the stock it has. That is what we're going to work with. So that is going to finish it out for today's video. In the next test with this gun, which I hope to be doing in the next week or two here, we're going to take that middle charge of H4350 at 42.9 grains. We're going to load up a 5-shot test with that and get out to 100 yards and try that out. I'm really hoping we get somewhere around that same velocity, around that 30-80 range, and some good accuracy. I also want to try out a little more with the IMR 4064 and the Reloader 15. What my plan is right now, and this may change, of course, as my plans often do, but I want to load the next higher charge of both 4064 and Reloader 15. So that would be 37.5 grains of 4064 and 37.9 grains of Reloader 15, and just see what we get. See if the velocities start climbing up there, topping that 3,000 feet per second range, and just see what the rest of the numbers do. Both the 4064 and the Reloader 15 had lower case fill, obviously, because the volume of powder was several grains lower. The density seems to be close to the same among all of them. And with that longer seating depth we've got more room in the case for powder. So I hope to try out a little higher charge weights in 4064 and Reloader 15 just to see what we get. that is kind of mostly for fun, and because I know now that we're probably not going to have enough brass to load 150 pieces. I have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 8 pieces with cracked necks just sorted out of 35 pieces or so. So I don't have high hopes for the rest of this batch of brass. And we've got 200 bullets. I want to get at least 100 rounds of this to the guy that owns the gun when we're all done here, and I don't think we're going to run into any issue. These bullets are available right now, so if I end up wanting to do some more testing, I'll just get another box of them. They're a little expensive, around 48 bucks a box right now, but I think it might be worth it to play around here on the channel with the 243. Anyway, thank you guys for sticking around through all of my rambling. I hope this video was interesting to you. If it was, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and stick around. We're going to be doing more with the 243 very soon here. Again, thanks for watching, and y'all have a good one.